I still hear the chimes. Every night at 3:17 a.m., without fail, the soft, metallic echo of wind chimes that were never hung. My therapist says it's just a residual hallucination, a symptom of the trauma, nothing to be afraid of. But she wasn't there. She didn't see what I saw when they opened the door to that room. The smell, the blood on the ceiling, the child-sized bed bolted to the floor. Everyone says I made it up, a stress reaction from the fire. But I know what I saw. And now the chimes are back. It started with a fire, not an explosion, not a scream, just a soft crackling pop, like static. Then the scent of smoke. I was in the break room of St. Anselm Psychiatric when the alarm went off, my 4th overnight shift that week. Coffee cold, nerves frayed. My badge still said, intern, but they let me do rounds alone now. Badges don't matter much when you're the only one willing to work nights in a facility like St. Anselm. The fire began in the north wing, the abandoned part. No patients, no staff. Supposedly shut down after budget cuts in the 90s. But the sprinklers triggered in the admin wing too, and I was one of the first to the control panel. Security was scrambling, shouting codes over the radios. Hallways filled with smoke. It was chaos. Then someone said a word I'd never heard before on that floor, room 6B. I didn't know Street Anselm had a 6B. While they were trying to unlock the fire doors, I followed the panel. I don't even know why. Maybe it was the way one of the nurses looked when she heard 6B, like she'd seen a ghost crawl out of the wall. I took the back staircase. The whole floor was supposed to be empty, but I swear, as I walked toward the far end of the corridor, I felt the temperature drop 10 degrees. There was a door at the very end, marked only with a brass number, 6B. No nameplate. No keycard scanner. Just a deadbolt. Old, rusted, like it hadn't been opened in years. Then I heard it. A soft chime. Like a wind chime. Inside the sealed room. The fire was 2 floors below, but smoke curled from beneath the door, snaking into the hallway like fingers. I should have turned back. I should have reported it and gone home. But something, maybe the sound, maybe the cold, pulled me forward. I knocked. No answer. So I turned the knob. Unlocked. The door creaked open 2 inches before it stopped, wedged shut from the inside. And that's when I smelled it. Not smoke, not fire. Rot. Decay. Human. I leaned in. I was going to push the door, shoulder it open. Then a hand reached through the gap. Small. Pale. It touched mine. And vanished. The door slammed shut. Dead silence. No chimes. No smoke. Nothing. By the time security got there, the corridor was clear. The door? Sealed. Locked tight with a padlock they swore had been there for 20 years. But I know what I felt. And that was the last night I ever worked at St. Anselm. The chimes began 3 days after the fire. At first, I thought it was tinnitus, residual stress, maybe the start of a breakdown. I'd seen interns crack before. St. Anselm wasn't exactly gentle on the mind. But it was always the same time, 3:17 a.m. A soft ringing, delicate and patterned, like wind chimes in a breeze that didn't exist. It lasted exactly 12 seconds. Then silence. I told Dr. Heller about it during my first mandated therapy session. She wrote it down slowly, never breaking eye contact. Auditory hallucinations. Likely PTSD-related. Your encounter with the sealed room may have triggered repressed trauma. I wasn't traumatized, I said. You found a sealed door, she countered, in a building known for housing the criminally insane. During a fire. And you think you touched a hand coming out of it. It did touch me. Was there physical evidence? No. But let's talk about your past instead. I should have walked out. I didn't owe her anything. But something about that question stuck in my head long after I left her office. Let's talk about your past. That night, I went digging. I pulled my old personnel file, typed in access codes I wasn't supposed to know. I looked for floor plans, anything about a 6B. Nothing. No record of it ever existing. But the strange part? The hospital had been built in 1952. Records before 1993 were digitalized but fragmented. There were gaps, entire years missing, as if someone had scrubbed them. One image caught my eye. A scanned floor map from 1987. 6B, North Wing. Labeled Silence Room. No other rooms had names. Just numbers. But this one had its own title circled in red ink. Patient must remain restrained at all times. That night, I didn't sleep. The chimes were louder. Closer. I started to smell smoke again, faint but acrid. And then, worse than the chimes, came the voice. Not a word. Just a single breath. Inhale. Exhale. As if someone was standing right behind me. I turned. No one. The next day, I called my mom. She sounded surprised to hear from me. Are you okay, honey? Did I ever stay in a psychiatric hospital when I was a kid? Long pause. Static hummed in the background. What makes you ask that? Just something I remembered. I thought, maybe I was a patient once. At St. Anselm. Or somewhere like it. More silence. Sweetheart, she said gently. You were never a patient. You just had a very vivid imagination. Remember your dreams. Dreams? You used to talk in your sleep. About a boy in a locked room. You used to draw pictures of him. My hands went cold. Did I ever say his name? She hesitated. Benjamin. A sharp click. Line dead. I never mentioned a name. And I haven't spoken that word since I was 6 years old. The name hung in my head like an echo trapped in an empty hall. Benjamin. I hadn't heard it spoken aloud since I was a child. And yet, as soon as my mother said it, I remembered his face. Not clearly, just flashes. Dark hair, pale skin. A jagged scar down the left side of his mouth. He never smiled. But I remember thinking he wanted to. I found the old sketchbook in a box in my closet. I'd forgotten I even kept it. On the second page was a drawing I must have done when I was maybe 6 or 7. Crude crayon lines. A boy behind bars. Red scribbled over his hands. A bed bolted to the floor. And under the drawing, in a child's handwriting, Benjamin lives in the quiet room. Not silence room. Quiet room. That's when I remembered something else. There was a door in my childhood home we were never allowed to open. Not a basement. Not a closet. It was in the hallway near my bedroom, painted the same color as the walls, with no handle on the outside. Mom used to tell me it was just a utility room. For wiring. But one night when I was 8, I woke to the sound of wind chimes. And the door was open. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that memory came back. Instead, I drove back to St. Anselm. It had been a week since the fire. The north wing was still closed off, and my badge no longer worked. But I waited until just past midnight. I knew the guards rotated at 12:15 a.m. sharp. I slipped in through a side entrance using a key I'd forgotten to return. The corridor to 6B was darker than I remembered. My breath fogged in the air, though it was mid-June. At the end of the hallway, the door. Unmarked now. No brass plate. Just a slab of wood, sealed with a new lock. But this time, it wasn't locked. The door creaked open at my touch. Inside, it was exactly as I remembered. Metal bed bolted to the floor, rusted restraints dangling like dead vines. The wallpaper, what was left of it, had been torn away in patches, revealing names scratched into the concrete. Most were illegible, but one name was repeated over and over again, in tiny, manic handwriting. Benjamin, Benjamin, Benjamin. And beneath one of them, the words, he never left. Something moved in the far corner of the room. I thought it was a shadow, but then it blinked. Eyes. Watching me. I bolted. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. My skin burned cold, like I just walked through fog. And when I looked in the mirror, my eyes weren't mine. They were his. Just for a second. Just long enough to know. Benjamin wasn't imaginary. And whatever happened in that room, I was part of it. The next morning, I sat in my apartment with every light on, wrapped in 2 blankets, watching the front door like a dog that had been beaten. Sleep was no longer an option. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that room. The restraints. The scratches. The blinking eyes. But more than that, I felt a heaviness in my chest. Like a truth trying to break free from inside my ribs. I emailed Dr. Heller. Subject line. I need to know if my memories are real. She responded within minutes. Come in. Today. Noon. I'll clear my schedule. Her office was warmer than I remembered. The walls were lined with books, childhood development, trauma psychology, forensic psychiatry. I hadn't noticed before how many books she kept about false memory syndrome. I told her everything, the name Benjamin, the drawing, the silence room, even the face I'd seen in the mirror. She listened without blinking. Then she asked one question. Have you ever been diagnosed with dissociative amnesia? I hesitated. No. You were evaluated when you were 13, she said softly. Court mandated. After the incident. What incident? She turned her monitor toward me and opened a sealed file. My name. My birthday. The word redacted stamped across half the document. But one sentence stood out, highlighted in yellow. Subject exhibits evidence of severe memory repression following trauma consistent with dissociative identity fragmentation. I leaned forward. What does that mean? She tapped her pen once, deliberately. It means there are parts of your life you've completely erased. And something in that hospital, the fire, that room, it cracked the seal. I stared at the screen. My chest tightened. What happened when I was 13? She gave me a long look. Do you remember a boy who went missing in your neighborhood around that time? Someone your age. My mind went blank. No. His name was Benjamin Carter. I froze. The name wasn't just familiar now. It was like a scream muffled by 1,000 layers of cotton, something I'd buried so deep it had started to rot. I left her office without another word. Back home, I opened a private browser and searched his name. Benjamin Carter missing person, 2003. There it was. A grainy photo of a boy with dark hair and tired eyes. Missing from West Hartford, Connecticut. Last seen leaving school. Never found. Then I saw the street name in the article. Ashgrove Lane. My street. The boy who disappeared was my neighbor. And the police had interviewed the entire block. Except for one house. Ours. Because we left town 2 days after he vanished. The article quoted a neighbor. The boy next door was friends with him. They were always together. Then one day, poof, both gone. Family said they were moving for work. But something about that timing. I clicked the next link. A forum post. 10 years old. Was Benjamin Carter ever found? No replies. Just one final comment from a deleted account. Check the room that doesn't exist. The quiet one. I slammed the laptop shut. That night, the chimes were deafening. And this time, they were inside the house. I didn't go back to sleep after that night. Not after hearing the chimes inside my own home. Not after waking up on the floor of my hallway with blood under my fingernails. Blood that wasn't mine. I called Dr. Heller again. Begged her to try something more aggressive. I want hypnosis, I told her. I need to remember. She was hesitant. Hypnotherapy isn't a magic key. And with your history. Please, I said, almost whispering. I think I heard him. I need to know. She stared at me for a long time, her fingers steepled in front of her lips. Then she nodded. We did it that afternoon. Her office dim, a white noise machine humming softly in the corner. Her voice was low, steady, rhythmic. You're safe here. You're just going to remember a day when you were very young. A day when Benjamin came to play. My throat closed. My hands trembled on my lap. Can you see him? She asked. Yes, I whispered. He's at my house. We're in the backyard. What are you doing? He's crying. He wants to go home. Why? I paused. My voice sounded smaller than I expected. I told him about the room. The quiet room? I nodded. He didn't believe me. So I said I'd show him. What happened when you showed him? I told him we had to be quiet. That if he made noise, the man in the walls would wake up. Was that something someone told you? About the man in the walls? No. Where did that idea come from? I think it was me. The memory shifted like a film reel catching. I saw the room in our hallway, the one without a doorknob. I saw myself pull it open from the inside, using a paperclip I kept hidden under the trim. I saw Benjamin's face. Terrified. I watched myself shove him in. And closed the door. Why did you do that? Dr. Heller asked gently. Because I wanted him to stop talking. The air left the room. My eyes filled. I didn't mean to leave him in there that long, I said. I thought he was pretending. I thought he was faking. How long did you leave him in there? 3 days. Silence. I opened my eyes. And I was alone in her office. Dr. Heller's seat was empty. The lights were off. Her desk clock read 3:17 a.m. I stumbled to the door. Locked. I banged on the glass. Hello? Dr. Heller? Behind me a sound. Soft. Metallic. The wind chimes. They came from the far corner of the office. And when I turned, he was standing there. Benjamin. Older. Pale. Mouth sewn shut. Eyes full of ash. He lifted one hand and pointed at me. Then, for the first time, I heard his voice. Not out loud. Inside my skull. You left me there. I don't remember unlocking the office door. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is the silence that followed. A silence so thick it roared. For the first time in years, the chimes didn't come. And that terrified me more than their sound ever did. I called Dr. Heller the next morning. Her number was disconnected. I drove to her office. Empty. Furniture gone. Plaques removed. Like she'd never existed. I even checked the building directory. No listing. No record of her ever having practiced there. I tried to convince myself it was stress. Delusion. A hallucination caused by trauma. But that voice, his voice, still rang inside my head. You left me there. Not we. Not they. You. So I went to the police. I sat across from a detective named Morales, palms sweating through the cuffs of my sleeves, and I told him everything. The boy, the door, the room, how I locked Benjamin inside. He listened, jaw tight, expression unreadable. He didn't stop me, didn't interrupt. He let me finish every word. When I was done, he leaned back slowly and crossed his arms. "That's a very serious story," he said. "I know. And you understand that making a false report. It's not false. There was a room in our house. In the hall. You'll find him there." He stared at me for a long time. Then he stood. I expected him to call someone. Maybe send a cruiser. But instead, he came back with a manila folder. Dropped it on the table between us. "I pulled your family's file when you started talking," he said. "Just in case." Inside were black and white photos. Crime scene photos. But not of Benjamin's disappearance. Of my old house. The hallway. The door. Split open. Blood on the inside. Streaks down the wall. Scratches in the wood. The pictures were old. Labeled, Carter Investigation. 2003. My name was in the case file. But not as a suspect. As a witness. "Your mother confessed," Morales said. "Told us she found you in the hallway, sobbing, with the door shut and locked. Said she thought someone broke in, tried to take you. Claimed she opened the door and found blood, but no body." "What?" He nodded. "We never found Benjamin. Your family moved before we could follow up." I shook my head. "No. She told me I imagined it. She said I never knew him. She lied to you." He handed me a printed form. "I'm reopening the case. Officially. I want you to take us to that house." I looked at the address. Ashgrove Lane. I hadn't been back since I was 13. But suddenly, I knew exactly where to go. That night, we stood in front of the rotting, vine-choked house. A shell of a place that still smelled like childhood. They pried the old door open. Floorboards groaned under our feet. And there, at the end of the hall, was the door. Still handleless. Still shut. Detective Morales nodded at me. "You ready?" I nodded. He forced it open with a crowbar. The air that poured out was damp and rancid. Mold. Iron. Something else. Inside, the bed. The restraints. The walls, covered in scratch marks. And in the center of the room, bones. Small. Human. Wrapped in a tattered school uniform. And clutched in one bony hand, a rusted piece of metal. A wind chime. They confirmed the remains belonged to Benjamin Carter within 3 days. Dental records. DNA. It was him. The story made the local news. Boy missing for 22 years found in former family home. My name wasn't mentioned, not at first. But Morales kept pressing me for more. Not just about the night Benjamin disappeared, but about the years leading up to it. He thought I was protecting someone. I wasn't. I was protecting myself. The real story hadn't surfaced yet. Not the part one still hadn't let myself remember. Not the part I'd buried deeper than even Benjamin's body. But it was coming. The dreams returned first. I saw him again, not as a ghost this time, but as a boy. Alive. Scared. Screaming behind a door no one else could hear. Screaming my name. Begging. I always turned away. And then I remembered something else. The voice in my head, the one I thought was his? It wasn't. It was mine. I went back to Dr. Heller's office building a final time. Not to find her. I knew she never existed, at least not the way I remembered. She'd been part of my mind's scaffolding. A self-created therapist in a self-contained loop. But I found something else. A small, unlocked storage room down the hall from where her office used to be. Inside, dust-covered boxes labeled St. Anselm and active files. I opened them one by one. And then I found it. A folder with my name. Not as staff. As patient. Admitted, August 14, 2003. Diagnosis, dissociative identity disorder. Secondary, PTSD. Cause, self-reported trauma, possible involvement in peer death. Treatment notes from a real doctor. Dr. Lorraine Bessler. Not Heller. It all came back then, not like a wave, but like a knife slid quietly between my ribs. I wasn't just Benjamin's friend. I wasn't just the last one to see him. I was the one who created him. Not in the way you'd think, not fictionally. I created the boy who disappeared because he was never supposed to be there. Not in that room. Not in my life. He was my altar. The one who took the beatings. The one who held the pain. The one my mind split off when I was 5 and my father started coming into my room at night. I let him carry everything. I created a quiet place for him inside me, a room no one could reach. But one day, I got older. Started healing. And I wanted him gone. So I locked him away, inside myself, and I left him there. Alone. That room in the house? It was real, yes. But it wasn't his grave. The bones we found? They were someone else's. Another child. One my father hurt before he turned on me. One I blocked out entirely. Benjamin's remains were never found because Benjamin was never fully flesh. He was what I needed him to be, a sacrificial twin. A container. And in killing him inside me, I killed a part of myself. The wind chimes stopped after that revelation. Not because the haunting ended, but because I had finally opened the door. Now I sit in a real therapist's office. Every week. The real ones don't look like Heller. They don't tell you what you want to hear. They make you remember. And some nights, when I can't sleep, I still hear a faint ring. Not at 3:17, but just before I slip under. A single chime. Like a key turning. Like a boy being led out of the dark.